Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I am super pumped up because we have the fantastic Dr. Clarence Caldwell. He goes by the Leader's Mindset Doctor, and I'm super thrilled because I have a feeling he's going to be dropping words of wisdom left and right when it comes to power, passion, and purpose. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Janie, very much. I'm honored to be a part of your movement, and anything I can add in terms of value or as you mentioned, wisdom, I'm willing to give what I have to give.
How did your personal transformation journey begin? Like, at what age? Was it one of those interesting things that happened when you were really young, or did it not happen till later on in your life?
Oh my goodness. How long do we have?
I know.
No, I'll keep it as brief as I can, and I'll start with waking up as a homeless man in the backseat of a car. And when everyone talks about this watershed moment, this epiphany that just happens. And I'd like to be able to say that there was one of those moments, but truly it happened over time. But there was that moment when I woke up and the windows were fogged up in the car because I'd been sleeping in there all night, and it was cold. And I wiped away the dew from the window and my hands were wet. And I looked out and I saw all these people walking around with briefcases and doing their thing. And I'm like, how come they get to have a great life and I'm here? And at that moment, I did have this idea that, I wasn't destined to be a homeless man. I know that I wasn't destined for that. So then I had to go on this quest to figure out what it was that I was destined to do and to be.
And I love that you said the word quest, because that has been a word that's been coming up a lot lately for myself. It's like, how when words start coming into your consciousness, you also start to see them a lot. It's like on a billboard, or you'll just hear it on a podcast, and it'll just be extra loud. And life itself really should be viewed as this quest, as this like long adventure it's like a movie, where you're going to have these moments of like treacherousness and how are you going to get out of that, And so for you having that visual and seeing and coming to that like realization that this is not really what I'm destined to be. What was that first step for you then? Was it a book? Did you go to a bookstore? What started to help you heal all the belief structures that had gotten you into that position in the first place?
You mentioned, wow, that's a really loaded question. I mean, it's a great question because you mentioned some things in there that are so powerful. The thing you mentioned about belief, that is absolutely critical. What you believe about yourself is everything. But the moment I woke up, the first thing I had to do was go get something to eat because I was starving. And I had these, some of your listeners may not, or viewers may not remember when they had food stamps. But I had food stamps in my pocket that I had probably stolen from someone. And I said, I'm going to get myself something to eat and we'll try to figure this out. So it was really literally one minor step at a time. Let's take care of the basic platform of Maslow's hierarchy, right? Let's get our shelter and our food taken care of, and then we can start to think a little more clearly. But after a period of time, I did stumble across a book. It was called Everybody Wins. And it really talked about the power of the mind and how you can really program or reprogram the subconscious mind to basically live your life by design as opposed to by default. It didn't use those terms specifically, but that was the gist of it. And I thought, if the mind is that powerful, let me gain some level of mastery over it, because it was obviously my mind that got me where I am. So where do I want it to take me? And it was, the journey was long and it was painful and joyful. And, going from the BREADLINE to the boardroom, I ended up as a senior executive at some of these countries' largest companies. I realized that the power of the mind is just incredible. And it starts with that belief. You mentioned it, the belief in yourself.
You know, as you were telling that story, I was remembering that movie, Pursuit of Happiness. This
Yes.
plays that man. I can't remember
Yes.
his name, but you were literally like that guy. You know
Yes.
what
When
I mean? You
I
know,
saw
like,
the movie, I thought, that's me.
right? I mean, seriously. And I'm sure there have been many others that have lived similar lives. You hear
Right.
all the time, you know, even Jim Carrey has an incredible story like that. That's why, you know, we really should never judge a book by its cover. And we should never underestimate the potential that every human being has when only given maybe a chance, or like in your case, for you, it was just that one quick question or that realization that you needed to start the baby steps to getting you from, like you said, the breadline to the boardroom. I would imagine as you start to make those choices, what you seek, you shall find. Who was that first person that sort of came into your life that ended up being a very integral or a very important individual that would be like considered a journeyman or a journeywoman?
Yeah, well, there were obviously very many people that I listened to and I watched, and certainly, you know, some of the spiritual leaders and the thought you know, leaders of our time were inspirations to me. You know, I listened to speakers like Les Brown and others who talk about you have greatness in you and things like that, and it just resonated with me in terms of knowing that there was something inside of me that was yearning to express itself as me. And I just had to find a way to unlock that. So the quest was really to find the keys to unlock it, not to really create a new me, but just to let me be me. And you know, I think it was Tony Robbins had said once, we are not human beings, we're humans becoming. And I love that because we're always changing. Even right now, I'm not a human being. I'm becoming something different. After this interview, I'm going to be completely different than I was at the beginning. Just having this connection with you. And so if you embrace that quest, that journey of continually unfolding, becoming, and expressing who you are, life is wonderful.
It is so wonderful. And I love that you mentioned the word becoming. And we're like on the same wavelength or something, I'm telling you, because that's another word that's been coming up. When you view life from that way, it does open up way more opportunities and way more possibilities because your perspective is expanding to a different degree.
Yes.
And when you open your mind, you were talking earlier, you mentioned the word design and default. And
Yes.
we bring that word up a lot on P3 because we talk about like our default way of thinking and those
Right.
neurological wirings and systems that have been shaped to
That's
keep
right.
us sort of limited and in a state of pain and suffering. And so
That's right.
you found the key. You were talking about unlocking and going back to remembering who
Yes.
you really are and what like you're really made of. And so that's us sort of like in my magical sort of kid-like way, we're all superheroes with amnesia. And
Mm.
when you start to wake up from that and start to remember who you are and then start to do the work to honor that individual, your
Yes.
life naturally is going to change for the better. You have a doctorate. So it's
Yeah.
like, when did schooling and education and all that really start to become part of your reality?
Yeah, well, you know, once I cleaned myself up and took on these little menial jobs, my first job was to run over to the grocery store and sit outside and help older women with their groceries to their car and get a dollar here and a dollar there. But eventually, the grocery store manager said, "Hey, why don't you come in? You know, you can stock some of the shelves." And so I got my first job that way. And then, you know, things, when you have that mindset of you are continuing to grow and there is more for you, these things begin to present themselves to you. And it's not that they weren't there. They were always there. You just were blind to them. You couldn't see because you didn't see yourself that way. And so as I began to take those blinders off and see my life differently, so many things started to happen. And I ended up working for these companies as, you know, in the very low ranks. And I've had some really good mentors in those companies that said, you know what, there's more that you can do. And they gave me chances and opportunities, and I started climbing and climbing. And I did reach a point where one of my mentors, he said, I'm not even going to tell you who he is because he's related to someone very famous. He said, Clarence, you could go further, but you've got to, well, the way he put it, you've got to get that paper. I said, what paper are you talking about? He said, that sheepskin. You've got to get a degree. And I didn't have a degree at that time. So I went back to school and I got my little bachelor's degree, and I came waltzing in, and he let me in one of his meetings, and something came up, and I was feeling pretty cocky because I was a graduate of a bachelor's, and something came up, and I said something and I challenged him. And he looked at me and says, well, you have a degree, you answer that. So I'm like, okay, this doesn't really qualify me for anything because I didn't have the answer. So I went back and I studied some more, and I got the master's, and as not too long ago, I just got on this quest of continuing to develop my mind from an academic standpoint, as well as my mind from a holistic and spiritual standpoint.
And, you know, I really love that you nurtured your mind intellectually and, you know, through education and through books and sort of that standard way of learning, but there's also the flexing of the mind through the spiritual avenues and holistic ways in which you strengthen your mind and your spirit. What were some of those avenues that ended up resonating for you?
Well, again, you know, the best thing for me was to see other people who were successful in that area, or at least my definition of success. You know, people like the Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, as an example, at the Agape Spiritual Center. He just has this mind around connection to the infinite intelligence. And I think, gosh, that really speaks to me. And so following people like him and Mary Morrissey and other people, and Wayne Dyer and others who have this intellectual background, but they have a spiritual bent to them also. And I said, that's got to be where I fit in. So I surrounded myself with those levels of teaching. And now I teach on that level as well. I have a class coming up at a big university in the area on personal leadership, ethics, and social justice. And I'm going to be diving right into some of these things that they've probably not considered before. So it's going to be interesting. But surrounding yourself with those kinds of people and people who know more than you. You know, I always say, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room, because you've got to be able to stretch and reach new heights. And you do that by surrounding yourself with people who are already there.
Growing up, was there anyone close to you, whether they be in your family or even maybe somebody at school, a teacher, that you admired and looked up to and had any of these traits, or were you literally starting from scratch as an adult?
Well, no, you know, that's a great question, because even as a very young child, my mother, oh my gosh, God bless her, she instilled in me the seed of belief in myself. I did not nurture that until I found myself down and out, but that seed was there. I remember having a conversation with her. It wasn't a real conversation. She had friends over. They were sitting around the table having coffee, just chit-chatting. And one of her friends said, well, Clarence, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I don't know. I never even thought about it. You know, kids don't think about that stuff. You know, fireman, I want to be a superhero. What do I say?
We all do.
Yeah. And so my mother looked at me and she said, you know, she said, no, baby, that's okay if you don't know. You know why? I said, why? She says, because you can be anything that you want to be. And it stuck with me. I mean, I can hear those words today. You can be anything that you want to be. Something that simple was a seed planted that allowed me to gravitate back toward when things got rough, and said, I don't want to be a homeless man. What do I want to be? Well, I can be anything I want to be. So what is that? And then the mind shift, the paradigm shift starts to take place.
It's like you have to get really clear about what you want and who you want to be. And if it's
Yeah.
not what you've been, then you have to learn what are those traits and those virtues and those qualities, and what's the essence of that person like. And so
Right.
that's exactly what you were doing. And so
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
osmosis and through your learnings, just out of curiosity, what did you end up deciding to get your degree in?
It is in organizational leadership. Now, as I have, worked my way up through the ranks of corporate America, I found myself sitting in the boardroom and dealing with literally a $2 billion budget. And I, at that moment, it was something that really hit me. And it was one of those, I call it a backseat moment. So I was in that car again. Like, is this really what I want to do? Is this where I'm supposed to be? Am I destined to be here taking care of somebody else's business, all this money and all these people? And I thought, no, let me leave this and do what's really speaking to me. When you talk about purpose and passion, that wasn't speaking to me in that boardroom. And so it was a hard thing to walk away from, because you leave a lot of money on the table when you leave those jobs like that. But at the same time, the value that I was leaving on the table by not pursuing my passion and my purpose was immense. So yeah, it's one of those things where you think you know what you want and you go after it. And then as we become something different, that shifts also.
I really appreciate that you mentioned that too, because I've had moments like that in my life where I had a very cush job making, really good money with the benefits and,
Yes.
the car paid for and a expense card and getting to work from home and all this stuff. But
Right.
I had always desired and had this curiosity of what it would be like to work as an entertainment reporter and move to Los Angeles and just, pursue this like performer artistic side of myself in a
Yes.
way that I hadn't really done yet. And earlier you mentioned bridging that spiritual side of yourself. And when one really starts to dial into the spirit self, there's a way in which you want to honor your soul, that when it comes knocking, like in this situation where you had a wonderful job, and here it was telling you, leave that comfort zone. When you did that and you took that leap of faith,
Yes.
was your level of fear high, or had you already been through so much in your life that fear that you were feeling was like, I got this?
No, I don't know that we ever get to this place where we don't have any fear. When I hear people talk about being fearless, I cringe a little, because fear is really always there. What I try to emulate and I try to share with others who are in a fearful place is not to try to eliminate the fear or get the fear to go away, but to build a level of courage. And you mentioned it earlier, courage that overcomes the fear. The fear is still there, but you have to have the ratio of courage that overcomes the fear to a place where it feels like the fear is gone. And so it's about building enough courage that that gives you what I call the risk reversal, where it's no longer a risk to run to the roar. When you hear the lions roar, sometimes you got to run right to the roar. There's an old African proverb that talks about how lions hunt, and the older lions are on one side and the younger lions on the other. And as the prey moves towards the older lions still have their mighty voices, so they get up and give a mighty roar that scares the herd, and they run directly into the younger lions. And sometimes you have to run to the roar and through it. And that's the level of courage. That's how they taught their warriors to be more courageous. So I think you just have to be more courageous than the fear. The fears that we have are not the lions and tigers and bears type fear, because we need those to keep us safe, right? That's the reptilian brain, the amygdala, that says, fight, flight, or freeze. But there is the other fears that stop us from becoming who we were meant to be. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, the fear of criticism, the fear of embarrassment, the fear, all of these other internal fears, that's what stops us. So, and our mind takes those fears as if they're lions and tigers and bears, and it shuts us down. And you have to build the courage to get over those fears, where you can continue to run to the roar. And so that was really what I was doing. And what I was running toward is a level of fulfillment that was really drawing me, instead of fulfillment. I was being, I wanted to feel full, but I really wasn't being fulfilled. And so that is what drove me to the levels of courage that took me past these fears.
I really love hearing you speak on, running into the roar. I talk a lot about, it's not about, we can't eradicate fear, but what we can do is get compassionately curious about it and then start learning how to outwit it. And again, that's why I call it the channel Rise Above. How do we rise above our fears and our limitations and all the things that divide us and split us off of our true essence, and all of these things. There's so many things that we must rise above. But each time you flex the muscle of courage, you're literally building resilience fibers within the brain, and in your body. And you're absolutely right. No matter what, all through life, each time as you level up, each time you want to try something new, each time you're being nudged to leave a job or leave an unhealthy relationship, you're going to feel those uncomfortable feelings. I know you've shared a lot of wonderful wisdom with us, and I would imagine most of it is in the book that you have out. Please let us know the title of the book.
Yes. I do have a book. It's called Escape from Average. They can find that on Barnes & Noble or Amazon, what have you. I do have a couple of other books as well. The 10 Commandments for a Failed Life. So, we always talk about the 10 Commandments, how to live your life in the right way. But there are things that you do that can lead you to the backseat of a car as well. The thing that I try to do is really take pieces of all of that learning and wisdom and share that the best way I can so that others can, make a better place for all of us. I mean, my goal is to heal a part of this planet, however small a piece I can. Not necessarily for me, but for my kids, grandkids, and on and on. I want them to live in a world that's safe and that they feel empowered to become whatever they want to become.
I love it. And I feel like when one wakes up understanding this and having that realization or that knowingness about oneness and how we're all interconnected, and that each day we wake up and we are impacting not only our own well-being and our wellness by the things we're thinking, saying, and doing, but it's also impacting those around us. And you are an individual who is living in integrity. You're living in accountability and responsibility, and you have that superhero mindset that I can really, connect with too. What does that feel like in terms of feeling purposeful?
Yes. Purpose is a really, everybody looks for their purpose. Now, what's my purpose? Why am I here? One simple way of looking at it is we've all been given a level of, I'll just say a gift. You've been given a gift. I don't know what your gift is. You know what it is. If you don't, look for it. Try to find whatever that gift is. And that's really the pursuit that we must have, is finding our gift. As we've all been given that gift, a gift of some sort. But our purpose here is truly to take that gift and give it away. Our purpose is to give our gift. Now, it may not be to work in a corporate. It may not be to write a book. Your purpose is to, whatever your gift is, give it. That's as simple. And we all have that same purpose. And when you look at it that way, now your task is to say, okay, what is my gift? What am I so good at it that, I enjoy it. It's a passion for me. People resonate with it, et cetera. Whatever that is, that's what I'm going to give. I'm not looking for any money. The other part of giving, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but I'll keep it short, Jamie. The part of giving that I think is important for us to know is giving has a couple of pieces to it. One is that you have to give away something that is of value to you, right? It may not be of value to someone else. We want to try and give value to someone. We don't know what's valuable to them, but if it's valuable to you, give it. I mean, it's like that old story that the woman only had a penny in her pocket and she gave that penny. Everybody made fun of her because it had no value to them, but it was all that she had. So that is a true gift. The second part of giving that I think is really, really important is to give without expectation of reciprocity. Have you ever given something to someone and they didn't say thank you? And you're like, wow, they didn't even say thank you. Well, that wasn't a gift. You were trading whatever you gave for that thank you back. When you give and you don't even expect a thank you, you don't want anything back. I'm just giving this to you. That's true giving. So those two things are really important in terms of giving. And then the third part of that is give with a sense of gratitude. Be thankful in all things. And when you do that, your purpose will unveil and reveal and express itself as you.
I mean, hello. I mean, I don't think we could wrap the episode with better knowledge and wisdom and loving, wise words that all of us can dial into and also appreciate, you know, because right now the world clearly needs more loving kindness. We're forgetting how to truly be friends, you know, to our neighbors, to strangers, you know. There's so much fear that keeps us from being in that place. And I think we could all use a little bit more of what you were talking about. So please let people know how they can find you online.
Well, I have several appearances on social media. Obviously, there's Facebook and Instagram and all the others, Twitter. But the best place, I guess, is just go to my website, clarencecaldwell.com. You'll see that my focus, it says that I'm around helping other Black men become executives and crack through the C-suite code, because that's what I know how to do. But the tenets of which I use to get them there are all the things we talked about: that personal leadership, that peace inside, the courage, the commitment, the confidence, the making choices, the emotional intelligence. Those are the things that will make anyone rise. But certainly find me on clarencecaldwell.com. Sign up for some of my videos and you'll get some free lessons there, and let's just stay connected.
Thank you so much for your time and being here with us today.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to thank you also for all the wonderful community work that you do to help mentor young men in your area. It's really important right now, especially for young Black men, to see educated, successful men like yourself out there doing the work that you're doing to help the world. So thank you so much. And I want to wish you continued blessings on all of your endeavors.
I appreciate it.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Your likes, shares, and follows are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channel. Thank you so much for supporting P3 this season. Be sure to tune in for season 2, when we'll meet more individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. Till next time, peace be in us.